All right, welcome to today's math lesson. This is math lesson 8.5. You'll need the same colors out that we did last time, red, yellow, and blue. And we are going to be doing some more practice with volume. As you can see, it says, volume is nice, it doesn't bite, just do length times width times height. Do you remember we talked about that the last time we did volume? So I want you to get your journal set up just like this. Don't forget to get the date in the red box and make sure that you have the right colors, and push pause on the video until your journal looks like this. Okay, so you can see the formula for volume, which is right here. It says V equals L times W times H. And you can use the multiplication sign that has an X or a dot, or you could even just simply put all of these letters right next to each other, and that would represent multiplication. So volume is nice, it doesn't bite, just do length times width times height. Today we're going to practice some of our drawing skills, okay? And we're going to talk about maybe some measurements that we would use when we're trying to find three-dimensional shapes. So over here to the side, I want you to write measurements, or we'll call these units, right? We're going to be getting into some measurements now instead of having to say units each time. So some of those, you might actually just say units cubed with a little 3. You might have inches, centimeters, feet, yards, all of those things. Every time it's going to be cubed with a little baby 3. Inches, centimeters, feet, cubed, yards, cubed, inches, oh, very good, inches. Oh, maybe even meters, cubed. And all of these can also be written as cubic units. Okay, so all of these are what we call cubic units. So technically, you could say, let's say the answer was 48. You could say 48 cubic centimeters, 48 cubic feet. Try it with yards. Use the number 48. 48 cubic yards. 48 cubic meters. Okay, so you can represent those in different ways. So now that we have that out of the way, let's practice drawing a three-dimensional shape. We're going to practice a rectangular prism. Okay, so we're first going to draw it going down about 3 lines across. Use the blue lines to help you keep straight lines. And then I want you to come down a line and in, and make a line like that. So I went in about 1/2 inch and started on that blue line and went down. I'm going to go over, and I'm only going to extend past the rectangle the same amount of distance that I extended here, and also extend there. And then I'll go straight down, straight across. So you can see that I'm doing the front and back right now. And then how do I make that look three-dimensional? I connect the corners. Corner to corner. Corner to corner. I might not have done that one as far out as I should have. That's okay. Okay, now that we have this empty space, I want us to use our red, yellow, and blue to find all of the lengths. It's running across the bottom. There's a length right here on top. There's one in the back at the top. And can you see this one back here? That is also the length. Those are all the same. Where are all of the widths? Use your yellow to find all of the widths. That's how far back it goes from front to back. Those are pretty easy to find. You see all those widths? And now we find all of the heights with blue. It's all the ones that are going from top to bottom, or how tall is the shape. You see that? All right, that is our three-dimensional shape. What we're going to do is use a pencil. We're going to use a pencil here to help it look like we are looking at the shape. Okay, so we'll just color the top. Just lightly shade it in all the way across. color the side. Remember these are called faces when they are three-dimensional shapes. If we color the tops and sides, sometimes it helps us really get what's happening with the shape. Hopefully that'll help you see it more, that it's three-dimensional. You could technically color even this back piece. If that helps. You could even color the sides. Sometimes it helps just to shade it in. If you could see it already, you don't need to worry about the shading part of it, but sometimes it helps. Just so we can kind of see what's going on here. Right, this whole first part is the front. That whole first part. Okay, get your shape all shaded in. Now that we've got the colors where they belong. And this time, instead of calling them just units, I'm going to actually give you a measurement. Okay, so let's begin with 13. And we'll say, we'll go with yards. Okay, if that's 13 yards, I'm going to say it's 10 yards going up and down. And then I'll say 3 yards for the width. So to find the volume, you have to know these three numbers. You have to know length and width and height. That is how we're going to find it. So volume is nice. It doesn't bite. Just do length times width times height. Right? So in this case, the volume would be the length, 13 yards, the width, 3 yards, and the height, 10 yards. So I'm going to say volume is nice. It doesn't bite. Just do length times width times height. Okay, so I'm going to multiply those all together. Well, I'm going to have to do 13 times 3, and then I'm going to multiply that by 10. But what I can technically do to solve this problem, I can change the order of these because that's the commutative property. So I'm going to write the commutative property allows me to change the order of the numbers. And here's why I would want to change them. Because I already know that 13 times 10 is 130. And then I can do 130 times 3. That's a little bit easier in my head. If you'd rather do 13 times 3, we could do that and then you would just end up adding a 10 to it, right? But the commutative property lets me change the order of multiplication numbers or addition numbers, right? So in this case, I'm going to do 13 times 10 times 3. That's what I want to do. Because I know that 13 times 10 is 130. And I take that and times it by 3. And I get 390. So that is, this was not a great example because it would have been just fine to do 13 times 3 and then times that by 10. But sometimes it really does help to put these in a different order when you're doing the multiplication. So I know the answer is 390, but remember I gave you a specific measurement. So you cannot just say that the answer is 390. You have to put it in the correct terms. So you're going to say the volume, you could even just say the V, but it's fine. The volume equals 390, and then it was yards times yards times yards. How many yards were multiplied? 3 times. So you could say yards cubed, or you could write that as 390 cubic yards. That is the final answer. You put it in 2 different ways so that you can recognize it. We know that that means I could put 390 little tiny yard cubes. Actually, a yard's pretty big, but they'd be 390 little tiny cubes. And when I say little tiny cubes, what I'm talking about are these little unit cubes that we would stack inside. Remember, they're stacked straight on top, straight on bottom. There's no gaps or overlay. or anything like that. It's perfect fit. 390 would fit in there. Pretty awesome. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try a different shape. Let's do a tall shape. Should we try one of those? I also want to kind of try a cube. So we're going to maybe leave some space here at the bottom. So let's come over here and do our tall shape. We'll just draw it like this. So we're going to draw the tall rectangle. Like that. And then we're going to come kind of diagonal from it. Instead of just going down one line, I'm going to go down 2 lines this time. And I went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I come down 2 here, halfway through, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to come over. Okay, so you can kind of see what's happening as you connect corner to corner. It really does help if you do all these. Look, the length is not very big this time. Lengths, all those lengths. The width. And all the heights. How tall is the shape? Okay. Alright, I'm going to show you as I shade what maybe starts to happen. It starts to take shape better and not feel so out there with what's going on. Okay. So if you're still drawing the shape, quickly get it drawn and get it shaded. Okay. Can you see that that's a 3-dimensional, a rectangular prism? It looks pretty good. Got it shaded. All right. Let's give this one some measurements. I'm going to give it some pretty big measurements. We're going to call these ones inches, okay? Let's say that this one is 14 inches. The red. And I'm going to say that the yellow is 20 inches. I'm going to say that the blue is 30 inches. Okay? If we are doing the volume formula, volume is nice. It doesn't bite. Just do length times width times height. Right? So this one would be, the volume would equal, the length is 14. The width was 20, and the height was 30. 14 times 20 times 30. Well, I would probably do 20 times 30 first because that's going to end up being a mental math problem. So I would go like this. 20 times 30. 2 times 3 is 6, and then there's 2 zeros. So it's 600. Then I have to take that 600 and multiply it by 14. Right, I still have that left. Well, here's a cool trick about this. Remember, anything that ends with zeros, I could just do 14 times 6 and then tack on 2 zeros. That's what I'm going to do. 14 times 6 is 84. Then you have to bring those 2 zeros down. So it's 8,400. That seems like a lot, but remember, they're inches. They're teeny tiny little cubes. So let's make sure we did the math right. Length times width times height, and then I did these two first. That's the commutative property. I got 600 times 14 by 6 to get 84. Brought the 2 zeros, 8,400. Okay, so in this case, I would say the volume equals 8,400 inches cubed. Or, how else would I say that? 8,400 cubic inches. So we have the three measurements, length times width times height. And we ended up finding the volume and having it as the measurement, length times width times height. We're doing okay so far? All right, the last thing I want to do is to try and draw a cube. Now, cubes are really, really tough to draw because they do have to be a little more perfect. Because remember, a cube is a square, a three-dimensional square. So all sides have to be equal. So I think the easiest way to draw a cube is to use 3 lines. So I'm just going to go like this. Actually, maybe we'll just draw 2. We'll just use 2 lines because I'm kind of running out of space. So we'll draw 2 lines. And I usually start counting to myself, like with my pencil lead, I just go 1, 2, and then I count the same. 1, 2, go back up. 1, 2, 1, 2. The reason why I'm counting is to make sure that my pencil is going for the same amount of time. But it's not perfect, and it'll be okay. All right, so wherever you start this next cube, it kind of has to be pretty far away so that you understand that it's the same length, right? All of the measurements are going to have to be the same length. So we're going to start it kind of in the very middle and go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. See, it's not perfect there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can tell it's clearly not perfect. But what's kind of nice about a cube is if you just kind of shade it in. It ends up working out. You see how I use my finger to smear the pencil lead? I like to do that, and then I will sometimes go back and just outline the lines I would see with darker pencil. Okay, so that's the best I could do at a cube right there. I do think it's not a great picture of a cube, so I'm going to maybe label it cube. Anytime when you're not sure or you're worried about your picture, you could label it that, okay? Here's another way that I could call this a cube. I could literally just give you one measurement. Because if they're giving me one measurement, they're kind of telling me that all the measurements are the same. So the volume for a cube is just 2 times 2 times 2, because it would be the same on all sides. So you'd be doing 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters. And what is 2 times 2 times 2? Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. Centimeter, centimeter, centimeter is centimeters cubed. So that would be the volume if you were dealing with a cube. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to take my yellow and I want to make this cloud, the one that we did for the first shape, is going to be yellow. The one that we did for the next shape is going to be red. And then we're going to write this one out here for blue, okay? The volume of that cube is 8 centimeters cubed, or 8 cubic centimeters. And we're going to get that in blue. So we've done 3 different examples on this page, 3 different types of shapes that we practiced drawing. We have different measurements. We dealt with yards, then we did inches, then we did centimeters. It could be anything. And sometimes if they don't give us the measurement, that's okay. We just go back and stick with units. You just label it units, okay? When you come to the next video, I want you to come prepared with this. I want you to tear out of your workbook page 327. it says Explore Layers, Unit 8, Lesson 5, and it has the little toucan bird. So again, you're going to go pull page 327, and we'll see you in the next video.